Today I'm joined by Brad McMahon, Managing Director of Optimum Consulting Group, and of course, someone who is speaking to leaders on a regular basis. Now, Brad, how are you?
Very well, thanks, Chase. How are you?
Yeah, good, good, good. Now, we were just talking about the fact that we've known each other for 25 years this year.
It's a
We
long
started
innings, isn't it?
we started working together in recruitment in Brisbane 25 years ago. And of course, since then, you went on to lead that successful business in Queensland, Recruitment Solutions, then started
Yep.
Optimum Consulting. So,
Mhm.
and for 25 years, the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because you've been helping business leaders to talk about their career, improve their career. And today's topic of interest is around how leaders can continue to evolve their career, given that their jobs become more competitive. And most organizations still look like a triangle. Um,
Absolutely.
so the question I really wanted to ask you, start off with, is what is the most common question you get from senior leaders who are interested in evolving their career um, in your day-to-day job?
Okay. Thanks, Chase. I suppose in my experience, there's two really common questions I get asked, and you're right. The market is shaped like a triangle. There's more opportunities at the lower level, and there's fewer opportunities the higher you go through your career. And people tend to get frustrated when they get to a certain stage of their career. They're just hitting that C level, and they're trying to progress their career, and they see a ceiling there that wasn't there in their younger years. And the two questions that come up quite regularly to me are, firstly, where do I find these jobs? And the second one is, how can I give myself the best possible chance to get the jobs when I find them? And I think people get a little bit confused. They don't know how many jobs there are out there, and they don't know where they are, and they don't know what they then should do to give themselves that best possible chance to be employed.
So let's break those questions then down, because the first one was around or where are the jobs. So let's talk about
Mm,
that for a moment. I mean, obviously Seek has plenty of jobs advertised, and there's jobs all around the place. So is that where someone would generally tend to go to find them?
well, first of all, there are jobs on job boards.
Mm.
If there weren't jobs on job boards, there wouldn't be job boards. So there are jobs on job boards. There are jobs that go through people like, myself and competitors in this market as well. And then there are jobs that come about by who you know, by that hidden network, by just knowing somebody who knows somebody that says, hey, I understand you've got this issue. I understand you've got this problem. Let me help you with the solution. So a lot of people don't realize that hidden network or the network that we operate in. They don't quite understand, because when they were first looking for jobs, they were advertised in the paper. Then they went to things like Seek, and they haven't fully understood what that next stage is. So, there are a few different arms to finding that job and connecting with people who are decision makers at that level.
Well, that probably then leads to that second question, talking about how the people can put themselves in the best position for that, because
Mm,
obviously, going for a role, I know some people I've spoken with make a very last minute decision. They either see something, or they get, like you're talking about, someone might even get
yeah,
tapped in the shoulder, or someone gets
yeah.
asked about something. So how would someone go about preparing themselves potentially for putting themselves in the best position?
That's a really interesting question. And it's probably one I can answer by reflecting on a conversation I had this morning.
Hmm,
I
please.
was speaking with a CEO candidate, and she has got a fantastic background and a fantastic business reputation. And she's actually just going through that period right now of frustration. She's frustrated because it's now been 4 months for her to find that next role. Coming out of COVID, she can see the market heating up, and she's wondering why the opportunities aren't coming to her. And she said to me that on average per day, she spends at least 2 to 3 hours on Seek and LinkedIn. Her LinkedIn profile's forever updating. She's doing the right things on Seek. She knows where every job that's advertised is at the moment. She's ringing recruiters. Like everybody, she's disappointed that some of her phone calls aren't being returned, but she's ringing recruiters constantly, all up and down the eastern seaboard where she's able to work. But I asked her a question today, which was, so tell me, what have you done about building your network? Who are you talking to? Who are your subject matter experts that you're speaking with? And it actually stopped her dead in her tracks. And she said, I actually haven't thought about my network and who knows people other than those first two steps. So together we devised a bit of a plan today that hopefully is going to see her elevate a job search and try and get into some of those chairmen and decision makers who are going to be hiring her as a CEO.
So it's almost like we're talking about the topic of preparation here, you know. So
Absolutely.
and I guess it's probably a trait that many boards or many senior
Mm,
leaders, when they're hiring someone else, would
mm,
want to try and make sure that they were bringing into the organization someone who's willing to
absolutely.
prepare and plan. So
Mm,
is that really what we're talking about here? When is the best time to be preparing for a role into the future? Is it a month in advance? A couple
mm.
of weeks in advance? Is it an ongoing process just in case you get tapped on the shoulder? You know?
You know what? When you get to this level, there used to be a saying in sales that was always be closing. I actually think at this level, you've always got to be preparing, and you've
Mm,
got to be preparing for your career and preparing for what's next. And preparation is one of the great differentiators when you come to C-level recruitment, and people who actually take their career very seriously at this stage of their career are better prepared than other people. I get every excuse in the sun as to why people didn't get a job. It's the industry. They were looking for somebody out of this narrow industry. They were beaten by gender, beaten by age. There's a myriad of excuses that get raised as to why people didn't get a job when people are looking to self-justify that. Often the truth of the matter is that they weren't prepared enough and they weren't able to demonstrate that compelling reason that made somebody say, hang on, that's the person I need to hire in this role. And as I say, when people are prepared, they can research company values, who's the decision makers, what they're doing now, what they want in the future, and how to present themselves in the best possible light to get that opportunity.
Because you're working from, I guess, two sides of the fence here. You've got the
Yeah.
opportunity to speak with a lot of senior leaders. You know, you place a lot
Mm-hmm.
of senior leaders in roles over, quite a sustained period. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got the organization that you're dealing with, of course, and the person who is ultimately, or the group of people who are ultimately making the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably should just make sure I'm not making an assumption about, that is their feedback as well. So they're
Absolutely.
they're giving feedback about why certain people missed out. So
Absolutely.
you've got the person who's gone for the job thinking that this is the reason why they missed out. But
Yeah.
what are some of the really common reasons, that you can share? Some of the, not so, I wouldn't call them secrets, but the real
Yeah.
feedback you get from people
Yeah.
about why people missed out.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, we're recruiting a CEO role and interviews are going on in my office in our boardroom right now.
Mm.
And so I can probably give some live
Please.
feedback
Yeah.
from that. And, the clients are up here, their panel are interviewing 6 people over 2 days. They've interviewed 4, and there's 2 that stood out and 2 that didn't. And the reasons for that are really quite simple. The 2 people that didn't hit the same mark as the 2 that did weren't able to demonstrate that they had the deep industry knowledge of where that industry was going. Not necessarily had they worked in that sector for so long, but they weren't able to hit what that organisation wanted into the future, and they weren't able to address those key points going forward. They interviewed very well. They said the basics and the foundations, as you'd expect any CEO to address very well, but they weren't able to take that business from where they are today and take them on a journey as they would as if they were CEO. So they weren't really able to clearly define what success had looked like in the first 6 months. And they didn't give the board members confidence that they were the people that could actually take them there.
So it almost sounds like we're talking about this topic of preparation again, because what you're sort of seeing is that industry experience, which a lot of people assume is a
Mm.
big thing, right? And
Oh
it's, in
yeah,
fact, it's one of those priorities.
it is a factor. It
Yeah,
is a factor,
sure.
Jace. You can't get away from it. It is a factor. Cultural fit is a factor. There's all those generic terms that get used as excuses. They always come up. But I think that really compelling reason that people sometimes miss is somebody who actually gets that meeting, gets that interview by the scruff of the neck, and addresses every one of the hot buttons, and they're able to leave those members of an interview panel with no excuse other than to hire them. They've made such a great case, and that's where you have somebody that's thoroughly prepared, thoroughly researched, and they're smart enough and agile enough to be able to move through the interview and give the employer, no reason not to hire them.
Mm. communicating the value too, probably by the sounds of it. I mean, that's the thing, the situation you just gave right now about someone
Yeah,
being able to articulate their plan, based on what they
absolutely.
know and the fact that they've
Absolutely.
actually researched and done one. You mentioned the word boards before, and I
Yep.
guess the more senior someone gets, and we're
Mm,
talking about people who really do care about their career, then the
mm,
conversation about board participation and becoming a member of a board will be there. And I
mm,
know personally, because of the fact that we've been working together, that you helped a number of organisations find those right people.
mhm.
So, what would be your best advice around how someone can find those kinds of roles, which always seem to be, you don't really see them advertised on job boards too often, right?
No,
So,
there are specialist board recruiters. There are people like myself who do board placements, absolutely, but that percentage is even lower than C level recruitment roles. Where the best counsel I can give is to really know your unique, your proposition that stands you apart. Know what you can offer a board. That's the first thing that I think people get totally wrong. They say, I'm a finance person, so I can be on a board, but know what you can really do that the board don't currently have right now. There are some skills that are becoming in demand on boards at the moment, particularly around technology, particularly around things like cybersecurity, particularly around issues of trade and customer relations. There are some unique board skills that are out there right now that aren't in plentiful supply. But really know what it is you can bring to a board, and also know what the board wants. Always be networking is the other thing I'd say. Most board placements tend to be through people you know. And there are communities, and building a community of people who sit on boards and who are board influencers is really important for this type of area as well.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, so the I guess what you're saying is that it just because you don't have a classic background doesn't mean you can't be valuable to an
Absolutely.
organization.
Absolutely.
And coming back to communicating that value of the outcome. So,
Boards are looking for diversity of thought now, Jace.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know you and I have sat in many management meetings over the years, and I know you sit on a couple of boards yourself. And one of the things that you've taught me over the years is that we all look at the world through our own set of eyes, and that brings a diversity of thought. And diversity of thought's very, very, very good to come to the best possible solution. And to get to the best possible solution, you've got to look at it through someone else's lens. And I think that there's some of the things that boards are maturing. Once upon a time, when you and I first started in this type of industry, the board placements tended to be friends of friends or family and all those types of nepotism related recruitment exercises. Now people are looking for skills. They're looking for people who've actually got something unique about them that's going to advance the business and protect the business going forward.
Sounds like though that's a pretty general bit of advice for everyone. I mean, your uniqueness. I was just as you were talking, I was just reflecting about the fact that
Mhm.
uniqueness was sometimes probably not all that celebrated. Certainly
Absolutely.
when we were younger, it's a little
Absolutely.
bit difficult. But
Absolutely.
yeah, the diversity of thought and there's a lot of literature around how
Mm,
not diversity, not just in terms of physical or diversity in terms of gender or those sort of things, but
mm,
diversity of thought and bringing new opportunities to the table in terms of how someone views the world, to
yeah.
to not so much hide that, obviously not express it too much, but
Yeah.
not hide it because there are opportunities. Would that be the case?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's certainly more the case than what it was 10 years ago, and it'll be more the case into the future.
Mm. Yeah, awesome.
We look at the challenges that the world has faced only over the last 12 months, and we've all had to become experts in working from home solutions. We've all had to become experts in, maintaining team focus during challenging times. We've all had to become experts in remuneration strategies to help in a downturn market. um, all these things that weren't really around for us, for the 10 years before. So the ability to bring unique skills to a board and to actually know what your proposition is, I think is a really, really, really key aspect of any search when we're trying to put boards together.
So I guess the last question I want to ask you about, thanks for this, by the way. It's
That's all right,
the,
mate.
the last question I wanted to ask you about was around any other advice or tips that we haven't covered today. So if you're Stuck in a lift with someone. People talk about elevator pitches and things like that, but say you
Yeah.
were stuck in a very short lift,
Mm.
and someone just saw that they recognized you and they said, "Hey, Brad, what's your best bit of advice to make sure I put myself in the best position?" What would that be?
Always be listening, be curious, and be prepared.
Nice.
If you can do those three things, and probably the only fourth one I'd add, which is something that I think is getting more and more important, is to be humble.
Mm,
If you can somehow combine those things, you're going to find that you're going to be in the best position possible.
nice one. All right, Brad. Thanks for your time.
Okay.